You're listening to the Journey podcast. When protecting others costs you everything, how do you protect yourself? Stay tuned for today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we delve into the critical topic of stress and burnout resiliency, exploring how personal and professional challenges can impact our mental health. Our guest shares her powerful story of facing overwhelming trauma and the journey towards rebuilding her life. Through her experiences, we uncover the importance of recognizing the signs of burnout and the steps we can take to foster resilience in the face of adversity. Abbie Westgate is a former UK police sergeant and served for 6 years. She was incredibly passionate about her work and was promoted within 3 years, but fell seriously ill a year later from stress, burnout, and trauma caused by events in her personal and professional life. On her road to recovery, Abbie discovered a completely different approach to healing than the one she was taught in the police, working with the body and somatics and the nervous system. This became her new passion, and 2 years later, she walked away from what was once her dream job to run her own coaching business, guiding frontline workers to become more resilient to stress and burnout using the same modalities that supported her. Abbie is also writing a book about her experiences and training as a somatic breathwork practitioner. Let's meet Abbie Westgate. Hi, Abbie. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because stress and burnout resiliency is such an important and profound topic for today's conversation. And I really look forward to it because I think a lot of our listeners can get some help with that. So welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Petra. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you're here and you can share your story with us. Like I said, I think there are way too many people in this world that are dealing with stress and burnout. So we definitely need to talk about this a lot more. So would you like to share a little bit about your story and how all this started off and how you came to what you do today?
Yeah, sure. So I am an ex-police officer, a former police officer, and I joined the force in the UK in 2018. It had been a dream job, something that I'd been working for about 8 years before, and doing lots of preparation and getting experience that would be relevant. So 2018 came around, I landed my dream job. I was engaged in a lovely relationship at the time. So it just felt like life was just going so well, and I was incredibly happy. But just before I started my job in the police, I lost my mum. So my mum passed away. And that meant that when I started the police, I was dealing with this huge bereavement. And very quickly, I learned that I was going to have to just suppress the grief to be able to get through my training and to survive in an environment that really didn't cater for the expression of emotion. It was a very stressful job, very fast paced, and I ended up suppressing a lot of my grief. However, what happened was that it came out down the line. So that was kind of the first mistake that I made, thinking that if you just suppress and get on with things, that essentially it's helpful in the moment in a sense, but you would still have to face it at some point. So what I also noticed was that the suppressed emotions were coming out in different ways and starting to impact other areas of my life. So I had an engagement which ended shortly after I joined the police when my mum passed away. And then I was having other issues in relationships and just issues that started to have a knock-on effect into my career. And eventually I hit a point of burnout, and became physically unwell, and it was like my body was saying, like, I can't physically keep going anymore. Like, all I was doing was pushing myself and focusing on the next thing and moving forward and growth and goals and achieving. But I think my body had just had enough. But what also happened in that moment where my body was physically unwell and unable to continue was that everything that I'd buried decided that that was going to come up too. So I had nowhere to hide. I had all my emotions to deal with and the illness. So that was like a really challenging period of my life where I had to then look at different ways to look after myself and to heal and to get better. And from that place, that's where I found a different path. And that's where I found new tools and techniques and a totally different way of looking after myself, looking after my health. And that eventually led to me starting a business to share these tools with my co-workers who I thought, wow, these tools are so powerful. I know who really needs them. And it was just people around me, but they're so universal. So it isn't just people on the front line in the emergency services, they're universal and they are really for anyone. But I ended up leaving the police to create a business where I really get to focus on sharing the tools and techniques that I learned to help me when I was in a place of stress and burnout and ill health, to reclaim my own energy and optimize my energy and just to be able to heal and enjoy life from a place of feeling healthy and good about myself again.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story there. And as I'm listening to you, there's a bit of sadness that comes up for me because of the lack of support that you received when you really needed it, especially in your work. So, from what I've heard from others, this is a very common thing that the workplaces are not really prepared to support the employees and their staff and coworkers in times of really high stress or grief or very high emotions. So, unfortunately, what you're telling me is something that I hear very often, and it makes me very sad because I wish there was that kind of support and help available for everyone. And when you said that affected you physically, that is also something I hear very often, that emotional experiences and trauma that are coming up will eventually become physical symptoms and really force you to stop and not work anymore. So
Mm.
it's a very profound story that you are sharing. And I am very glad that you found something to help yourself with, albeit not through your work. So, what is it that you came across that helped you heal and that helped you move through some of those experiences that you had?
So the first thing that I found was breath work, and it was a somatic style of breath work. So there are many different styles, but I had come across this somatic breath work, and I actually found it by accident. So I thought it was a meditation class, like on an app I had, but it was actually a somatic breath work, and it was the experience I had of having an emotional release from the body without having to have the conscious mind involved. And if you think of going to therapy and sitting and talking to someone, or you're sitting trying to use logic and reasons to pick apart why you're feeling a certain way, it kind of removed all that and allowed me to have that expression. And it was so powerful because I felt like I had released so much stress that I'd been holding on to. And like pent up frustration and sadness, it all came to the surface and was released in that breathwork session. And that really got my attention because I was like, how did that just happen? Like, surely I couldn't make sense of it, but I just knew I had that experiential aspect of, but it has happened. And I wanted to know more. So that's when I started to do my own research and look into the word somatic. And the word somatic is basically referring to of the body. So we have the mind and the body, and we like to say the mind's like the psyche, and the body is like the somatic, the soma. And soma actually comes from a Greek word which translates to living wholeness. And they believe that you can't have one without the other, like we're a living entity, the mind and the body. And So looking into somatics, it just really taught me that there were body-based healing techniques that help us to relieve emotions, stress, and trauma that are trapped within the body without having to get the mind involved and go via the traditional routes that we've usually been offered in society and that we're used to going to as a primary focus. But this was like it opened up a whole new world for me. And from there, I then started working with my own coach. He was a somatic therapist and he specialized also in nervous system regulation. And when I learned the nervous system regulation, I think along with the breath work and the somatic awareness, that's when I started to really experience profound levels of healing. And the nervous system regulation work I did, and if you think of the nervous system, a lot of people know it as where we feel our stress. We might know fight or flight or freeze, but we don't really understand that actually it all links down into the nervous system. And what that is, it's reactivity to events that are happening in our lives. So something will happen in our day and we will have a reaction. That reaction is essentially our nervous system. And I always say to people, stress isn't what's happening to you, it's not what's happening around you. So it's not the workload, the resources, it's not the finances or what's happening in the family per se. It's what's happening inside of us in response to those things. It's what's happening in our nervous system. So when I learned to work with the nervous system and calm that reactive side of myself, that reactivity, that's when I was able to do the inner parts of the healing work that I hadn't been able to get to because I'd been just caught in this reactive cycle of stress and burnout. So it was really like quite profound to move out of that place of being reactive to really be able to get to know myself and do the deep inner healing work that was so freeing and created a lot of freedom in my own life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And as you're explaining a little bit what you found and how that happened, in essence, you mentioned that you worked with a coach through that. So there are a lot of people that are afraid to find their own path because there can be a lot of backlash, a lot of judgment and stigma, especially at work, when you are off work, for example, with grief, or you're off work with traumatic experiences or stress or burnout. What made you decide to work with a coach? And was that a difficult decision, or did you find that for you that was sort of the necessary next step to take?
Yeah, so I think until that point, I hadn't really done any one-to-one work. I was aware of like group coaching, but there was quite large coaching containers that I'd been in where there was, hundreds of people in them. And I think when I hit that place of extreme burnout and feeling physically unwell, and that it impacted every single area of my life, like that was a period of desperation, I think, for me. But it was also a period that I always think back to as like, I can't ever go back to that place. Like, I can't go back there. So in a sense, that desperation was really moving me forward to find healing and to find it for good and not just repeat the same cycles that I had been of trying to find something that helps in the moment, but maybe doesn't help in the long term. So I decided to work with this coach because he had this background in the somatic therapy and the nervous system work. And I just had a sense that he could really help me to learn these tools and skills and take me through a journey that I didn't know how to get through myself. But also knowing that he'd also experienced a similar journey and had used these same tools and skills to help him move from a place of stress and burnout into just a place of healing and freedom and empowerment. So it was an easy decision once I had made that choice in myself. I really wanted to heal. And I knew that I felt like I'd hit a ceiling almost, like I was out of options and out of ideas. I felt like I tried everything. And all I had was the experience of the breath work, my own research, and knowing that there was this whole new world of somatic healing that I wanted to know more about, and I wanted to be led on a journey through, but I needed somebody to walk me through. So I needed guidance, and I found my coach, and I just knew, like, when I was speaking to him, I just had to trust that it was the right decision.
That's interesting that you say that. The trust. Yeah, because that is sometimes one of the most difficult things is after experiences that are traumatic is trusting ourselves and our own intuition again. So yeah, well done. And for our listeners, if there's some people listening who may be first responders or maybe they are police officers and they are hesitant maybe about finding help, is there something that you can tell them to help them take that first step? Some words of wisdom from your own experience on maybe overcoming some of that hesitation and really making sure that you look after yourself first and foremost. Anything that you can tell them on that journey?
So, I mean, it's a difficult position when you are hesitant and you are not sure what step to choose. And if there is doubt there in taking action, I think sometimes what that can do is keep us stuck because we think every step that we might take, we get frightened, so we don't do anything. What I would say is that there's a lot of free resources on the internet, so you can start to try different things where you're not making an investment, you're not making any commitments to yourself, but you're just being a bit curious and starting to have and explore. And from there, you might find what works for you. And that's when you might think, right, I'm going to pursue this path and maybe take a few steps into this and see if it's more suited for me. But I suppose, like, you can use your own judgment and try different things without the having to make any commitments, and just to have that curiosity and to see how it makes you feel. But I think it is important that we do explore and we do get curious about different things out there, because the other side to that is if we take no action at all, essentially we will stay in the same place that where we're at. But what I also will add to that is that support is so incredible. And I know that we don't always have access to family and friends, but like I said, the online community is a wonderful place. And even if it's in the form of free Facebook groups or networks through, so I found community through my coach and other people that worked with him, and different coaching programs I've gone on. I've met people through that. So it is starting to cultivate your own network of people who are maybe in a similar place and who you can talk to. I think that you can't really underpin that, the value of that enough. Having people that you can talk to and just have their support is so fundamental.
Yeah, that's a really powerful insight there because community actually very often decides the success of what we're trying to change. With support, generally we tend to do a lot better and have a lot more success if we are trying to change something in our lives. So that's a very, very powerful insight that you just gave us. And around the tools that you discovered, you mentioned somatics and breath work and nervous system regulation. Now, you have decided that these modalities work very well for you and that you are also wanting to share that with other people. So you have decided to certify in some of those. And what does that look like for you? And what has that journey been like?
Yeah, so since I underwent my own healing journey, my own healing transformation, and just saw the power of the tools and the techniques that I had access to, I really wanted to share them with, first and foremost, my colleagues. But like I say, they're so universal, like stress, burnout, grief, emotions, like it's so universal, it's the human language. So that it's relevant to anybody. But I decided I was going to leave the police to set up a business. I now have a business called Healing Blue Hearts, which is a coaching business, and I do primarily work with those on the front line, emergency responders, those in a service capacity. However, like I say, they're so universal. I work with my clients and teach them the somatic awareness and the nervous system regulation work. And I'm now currently training as a somatic breathwork practitioner. So I just find the combination of those three tools are so potent. And that's kind of the foundations of how I want to help people and the tools that I want to teach people and the legacy that I want to leave behind.
Thank you for sharing that, and what wonderful work. I can't wait for you to work with your coworkers when you're certified with that. And of course, I just want to mention here before we move on that if we have listeners who would like to volunteer during the certification, then Abbie also was looking for some volunteers. So when we come to the contact part later, feel free to take up contact with Abbie and connect with her directly to talk about the details on that and the when and where and the what. But if you are interested in volunteering for that, then you can have a chance to work with Abbie on some of those certifications. Now, tell us a little bit about the differences that these modalities have made for you. I am curious how you felt differently through your journey of grief, through your journey of burnout and stress. What did these modalities teach you, and how did things change for you specifically? You said that you went from very reactive to having more of that control in your life. So, what else happened for you to change?
Yeah, so just to give you a very clear picture, I'll run you through what I used to look like. So I was someone who ended up just suppressing my emotions, which led to feeling quite numb. And there's a reason why they say numbness is a living death, and that kind of describes exactly how I felt. Like I felt like I didn't have access to my emotions anymore. And there was times where I thought, I would never be in a relationship ever again because I don't know how to feel love anymore. And that is a really powerful thing that when I start to work with the nervous system and I started to reconnect the mind back to the body, and it gave me access to parts of myself that I thought were lost. And it just felt like I was returning home. But it wasn't just the sensations in my body, it was like who I was as a person changed as well. Like instead of looking around me for permission to feel and express and be myself, I learned how to create that from the inside. So taking the external focus, the external validation, the looking for permission from those around me to actually giving myself permission to be who I am and to start going after the things that I actually really want that are aligned with me, and to have access to all my emotions and to use them for good and with compassion. And then there was the health, like the health difference between when I was suppressing my emotions and living from a place of stress and burnout. I used to operate, I would run myself into the ground. That would then flip me into a place of burnout because I would be exhausted. And then I would be in a period of exhaustion for a while until that started to feel anxious because I wasn't really doing anything. And then I'd go back into the place of like feeling really stressed. So I was just in that stress burnout cycle, and that's kind of how I live my life. Whereas now I've learned to be able to rest and take the rest and to train my body to recognize when it's in a place of stress and move it into a place of relaxation, and to do that at a much earlier stage than what I had before, so that I'm not actually reaching these heights of stress and the depths of burnout. Like I am catching them at earlier stages and being able to regulate and move out of them. And that makes me live from a much healthier and happier place.
And where are you at in this journey now? Has this helped with your physical symptoms as well? Have you moved through some of the health issues? Has that been supportive with that part as well?
Yes, so the big period of burnout was around 2 years ago. and I started working with my coach around a year and a half ago. Within the 6-month period that I worked with him, at the end of that period, I was in a place of like great health, and I just had it felt like I had a huge reset within my nervous system, within my body, within my mind, within my health. And because of the tools that I now have, I've been able to maintain that and look after that. So it isn't just a use it once and it'll help for a little bit and then it'll drift off. Like the lifetime value of the tools and techniques that I learned and now teach others is infinite. So I am in a place of just great health and happiness. I think it's so valuable when you have been on the other side and you never see that you're going to get better and it just feels like, how am I going to get through this? To then comparing it to like mine now, where I'm like, I can't believe I was in that place. Like, how did I get out of there? But it's amazing.
And what an amazing resource you are to first responders and the police force now that you are working from this place of lived experience and you can understand what they're going through and you can support them in that. So wow, I'm just so happy that you have found this path and that you're continuing on this work. So and you work with clients as well. So would you like to let our listeners know a little bit about how they can connect with you and how they can work with you, just so they know if they've been inspired by this episode and they'd like to touch base with you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm currently on Instagram, and my Instagram account is Healing Blue Hearts. So that is a great place to connect together. And from there, I will be posting some educational content and some educational content about the nervous system, somatic awareness, breath work, and sharing a lot of my own journeys and a lot of my own stories from my personal life and from being in the police, just to really showcase how these tools have helped me and the transformation. From there, if there's deeper work that people want to do, I do one-to-one coaching. I have a program called Blue Hearts, and that takes my clients on a journey of healing, reconnection, and then elevation. And within that, I teach you how to work with the nervous system, somatic awareness, and breath work, which are three really powerful healing modalities that we've been discussing today. And also, I've been doing masterclasses. So I recently did one on this topic, stress and burnout resiliency, and we'll potentially be doing different themes around nervous system work, breath work, and also, as we mentioned before, if anyone would like to volunteer whilst I'm undergoing my breathwork certification over the next 3 or 4 months, I will be looking for anyone who'd love to experience the gift of breathwork. And there's a different set of sessions that I do. So there's a daily practice, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. There's a reset session, which is about 20 minutes, and then a full journey, which is 60 minutes. And it will be wonderful. Anyone who's interested, please get in touch and we can have a conversation about how we can give this experience to you.
Amazing. And it's always wonderful to support practitioners who are wanting to share their gifts. So if anyone wants to connect with Abbie, we will be linking to all of her offerings in the show notes as well. So you can check there for the Instagram account and any other ways that you can connect with her. And of course, if you'd like to volunteer, then use those same contact methods in the show notes and catch up with her, find out what she's up to with her certifications and see if there's some space for you to participate as well. And let us know here at the podcast what your experience has been. I'd love to hear how you're making out. And if you do participate in one of the sessions, how that has gone for you and what kind of transformations you have experienced. So definitely get in touch with us as well and let us know. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into stress and burnout resiliency with Abbie. Thank you so much, Abbie, for coming on today and sharing your own personal story and the wisdom that you have gained through all of this with our listeners and with myself. It has been fantastic to chat with you because this is a topic also very close to my own heart. So I really appreciate you taking the time today and coming on and spending this half hour with me.
Thank you so much for having me and just allowing me to share my story and just to have the space to share the message and make these powerful tools known.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we will share this far and wide. And I hope our listeners will have a lot of value from this, because I don't actually know anybody who doesn't have stress in their lives. So I think everyone
Yeah.
use these tools and can connect with you. So this has been so fantastic. So thank you again for your time, and take care, Abbie.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.